After Sam was locked up into the prison, Dream went to visit the prison every single day due to wanting to turn the whole thing into his own secret base. And Dream visiting Sam in prison ultimately ended in Sam's death. So let's take a look at how that even happened and start off with day 1, which is actually the day that Technoblade, Turbo and Eric confronted Sam at his house and took him into the prison. Now whilst he's inside the prison, he's trying to look around for an escape route or any blocks that he can break. But obviously because he has mining fatigue, none of the blocks would break for a good probably hour. And as he paces around the cell, Dream walks through the lava and sees Sam stuck in his own creation. Sam explains to Dream why he's actually in there and how Eric, Turbo and Technoblade had put him in. And this makes Dream laugh a lot, obviously because Sam had a big part in Quackity torturing Dream. Seeing that Sam is now being forced into his own cell makes Dream say that this is the best day of his life. Dream goes on to explain that he needs somewhere to stay during the nights that is heavily fortified because everybody on the server is looking for him to kill him. So the best place for him to sleep at nights and not worry about somebody breaking in and killing him would obviously be the prison. Sam begs Dream for food and to let him out of the cell, and says that he'll do anything in exchange to get out of here, but Dream doesn't care. Dream says that because Sam didn't stop the torture, he might as well have been the one who was doing it, and also goes on to say that he's going to find and torture Quackity and then lock him up in the cell with Sam. He's going to find everyone that Quackity loves and then kill them. And as Dream leaves, he tells Sam that he's going to visit him every single day and be his warden. The next day, Sam is sat in his cell shouting out for Dream to come back because he's hungry and just bored in general. He convinces himself that Dream will not be coming back and that he's going to be all alone and slowly starve to death. So he opens up a book that reads "I'm not an idiot" repeated for around 3 pages that he had wrote. He tells himself that he'll find a way out of the cell before he starves to death, and then Dream ender pearls inside the cell. Sam asks Dream again for tons of food because he's starving, and Dream responds asking if Sam himself thinks that he is a good person, whether Sam thinks the things that he's done were all good and reasonable. And Sam responds saying that he knows he is a good person, and that he does the things he does for the greater good. Dream tells Sam that doing something terrible for a better outcome is not any better than what he had been doing, and that Dream believes that he's good because all the things that he's been doing would have led to a better outcome for everybody. Dream then begins to list off other things that Sam has done, such as cutting off Punk's arm, locking Tommy inside of the prison cell, taking Michael to use him as leverage, letting Ghostbear come and see Dream, and tons more things that eventually led to pain for other people, and some of them even causing deaths. But the more that Dream hears about all the things that Sam has done and the reasons behind these things, he starts to like Sam more and more. And Dream explains that everybody on the server is pretty much a bad person because they all believe that what they're doing is for the greater good, and they've all done terrible things, but because there is a good reason behind it, everybody thinks they're the better person. Dream proceeds to ask Sam how it felt to be betrayed, and explains how Technoblade got the blueprints from Bad Boy Halo, and then Turbo, who Sam had trusted at that point, locked him in the prison. Techno, Eric and Turbo had hated Sam so much that they just joined together in order to take him down and stop what he was doing. And because Dream says that Bad Boy Halo had given the blueprints to Technoblade, Bad Boy Halo had betrayed Sam and broke all the trust that they would have had. Dream then goes on to tell Sam that he won't kill him as long as he self-reflects and realizes that he is not a good person, and goes on to leave the prison, leaving Sam in the cell all alone again. And waking up in day 3, Sam is pacing around the room calling out for Dream again. But today, he doesn't turn up. Dream just doesn't come back to the prison for a day, and that means that Sam cannot get fed because he has no food or items on him. Sam tries to think of a plan to escape the cell and writes in a book a bunch of calculations on how long it would take to break some of the obsidian. He goes around discussing the things that Dream has said on a previous day, talking about how he is not the bad guy, and that according to Dream's logic that would mean everybody is a bad guy, and that he is just a good person but put in the worst situations where he has to make a decision that may make him out to be a really bad guy. He starts to write in the book saying that he's not the bad guy and that Dream is, and Technoblade. He also writes down that Eric is also another bad guy and that he won't accept that he is being called this terrible person. He then goes on to repeat that he's not a bad guy and that Dream is until day 3 ends. On day 4, we see Sam trying to break one of the obsidian blocks, but during this he is slowly starving to death, and if he doesn't eat food anytime soon, he may just die. Luckily enough though, Dream enderpearls into the cell again and gives him some steak and drops a cake for him that Dream says he made himself. Dream then goes on to explain why he didn't visit him the other day and saying that he was metaphorically on an island, whatever that means, and goes on to ask Sam whether Sam thinks that Dream is a good person, and Sam responds with saying no. Dream then goes on to ask if he thinks that everyone else on the server is equally as bad, and Sam says no, they're not as equally as bad. And then Sam goes on to say that he thinks he himself is a good person, and then goes on to list a few things that Dream has done which has ultimately been bad. Things such as taking pets and items from people and then using it to manipulate the other person and control them, when Dream placed Tommy in exile, when Dream threatened to kill Tubbo so that Tommy would give up the discs, and so many more things that Dream has done which ultimately just affected pretty much everyone. And Dream admits that he's done some bad things, but at the time they made sense and they all had end goals to get, and in his head these goals were important and must have been achieved. They then go on to talk about why Sam let Quackity torture Dream and says that it was a means to an end so that they could get the revival book and it will be over. Sam says that he doesn't really know what Quackity wants with the revival book, but he believes that he would have gotten it as well if they did manage to get it out of Dream. But Dream doesn't think so and thinks that Quackity would have just kept it to himself because this book is very important and would be dangerous just to give it to other people. Dream goes on to explain how everyone in their own stories have a good guy and a bad guy. For example, in Wilbur's story right now, Dream is the good guy. Everyone is selfish and a good guy in their mind, so everything they do and all their actions they take are for themselves and they believe they are the right actions. Dream also goes on to explain that when the explosion went off on top of the prison and Tommy was locked inside and died, this was all Rambo, and Rambo had set off the TNT, and that if Sam wants to leave the prison now, he just has to accept that he is a bad guy and has to give Dream some of the keys to the prison so that he can access everything himself. Dream tells Sam that he should think over this and that he wants the prison to be his home, so no one except him will ever be able to get inside. And Dream then goes on to leave the cell, leading into day 5, which is actually the day that Sam has decided he wants to leave the prison. Dream enderpearls inside of the main cell at the same time as yesterday, and Sam tells Dream that he wants to get outside of the prison. He's thought about Dream's proposal a lot and thinks that it'd be alright to go through with it. He says that the only person Dream would really lock up would be someone truly evil, and isn't really too worried about Dream having access to the prison and just locking up everybody on the server. Dream just wants to live and not be bothered by everybody, so having a place where it's super secure and nobody's going to be looking for him in there is perfect. Dream tells Sam that he would not be allowed inside of the prison once he's handed over all the keys and everything, and Sam asks what he should tell everybody about the prison. Dream says that he should just tell everybody that it's out of commission and it's not in use anymore, and if somebody needs to be locked up, then just to talk to Dream and they'll sort it out. Dream says it will be there just for the future, and Sam agrees with this reasoning, so it's time to get Sam out. Dream gives Sam fire resistance and an ender pearl, and they go through the lava until Sam gets to the other side and resets his spawn. Sam leads Dream to where all the keys are kept and gives him a book called Keycard Reset. Once you use this book, this will reset all of the existing keycards so that the only one that works will be the one that Dream has. So Sam makes another Warden keycard and gives it to Dream so that he can test it out on the vault doors. And once they mess around with a few of the doors so that Dream can get an understanding on how everything works, Dream tells Sam to give him a sort of tour of the prison so that he knows where everything is and what the best place would be to live in. So they go through the guard access, the equipment station, and throughout all the hidden halls, and shows Dream the courtyard that had been sealed off for a good amount of time. Now, due to some of the explosions that Technoblade had done while they were escaping and other wear and tear on the prison, some of the doors aren't properly working, meaning that one of them will have to fix it over time. And finally, they reach the main portal to get out of the prison. Dream asks Sam if there's anything else that he needs to know, and Sam says that's about it. But before Sam leaves the prison and escapes forever, Dream stops him and says there is a bit of a problem. Dream talks about how Sam assisted the torture and how he can't just let him walk out after everything, and that Sam will be a living example of why not to mess with Dream. So Dream takes out his pickaxe and kills Sam, losing one of his cannon lives. Now make sure to check out the video which is on screen right now. It talks about the previous lore stream about why all this is happening and more, so go check it out right now.